Hey guys, I'm back. Time to jump into some more Sonic 3 and Knuckles by making our way through Ice Cap Zone. So here we are, Ice Cap Zone. If you recall from my Tails run of Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I mentioned that Ice Cap Zone along with Lava Reef Zone are among my favorite levels. For Knuckles, much like the previous levels we went through, he gets redirected to his own path, and it stays that way until the end of Act 2. Now, it's not apparent right away because we start out on Sonic's path, but as you progress through the level, you'll find yourself redirected. So for this first part, just make your way through the level, avoiding the traps, the enemies, and get your first experience with ice physics. Thankfully, the ice physics are only in these sections. Anyway, pick up the lightning shield here. It's very handy for picking up all the rings that are scattered throughout this level. Anyway, here's the area where we will be redirected. If you try to continue on Sonic's path, you'll find your progress blocked by this column. This column is indestructible, so no Sonic's path for us. Anyway, go right here. Take out the enemies, and you'll find yourself in a giant room with a lot of spikes. Now, if you have your super form, I highly recommend activating it here. You have a very slim margin for error for this section. To make your way through it, which I'm doing very badly, just keep gliding left and right, and try to avoid the spikes if you can. That is easier said than done. If you hit these spikes, you will lose your rings, your shield, and your life. Not exactly in that order. I can talk again. Anyway, make your way across these platforms. Yes, I know I can probably run across the spikes. I like to try to play the game as intended. I don't want to rely too much on my super form. Run across these columns very quickly. If you get caught on them, you'll basically be crushed to death. Make your way up and try to avoid that trampoline. You could try to continue on that path, but again, you'll find yourself blocked by an indestructible column. Anyway, make your way right, and we should be happening upon the mini-boss of this section. Pinball Land? You're not Pinball Land, but I guess you'll do. I'd like to try to get a few more rings. Ooh, rings, rings. Rings? That's good enough. Anyway, the mini-boss of this level follows the same pattern that you would see if you were playing as Sonic and Tails. Now, if you don't have your super form, you'll have to wait for him to throw the snowballs into the air. Basically the same pattern of 3. Try to stand in the middle here. Unfortunately, Knuckles doesn't exactly have the same jump height as Sonic and Tails, so trying to reach that particular boss can be a bit of a pain. Anyway, we made our way through Act 1, onwards to Act 2. Yep, Act 2 starts underground. I do not really recommend going into the water. Simply because most of this, let me rephrase that, I can talk again, but basically, if you go into the water, this whole area is pretty much a bottomless pit. The only way you could really save yourself if you fall in is to try to make it to the sides where there are trampolines. Or climb the wall, one or the other. Now, there are giant rings hidden in this area, but since Ice Cap Zone has a lot of rings scattered throughout the level, I don't really see the need to go after it unless you don't have the Chaos Emeralds. Or all the Chaos Emeralds. It's really your choice, just be warned. That's all I'll say. Now the gimmick for this particular act is these trampolines. They operate very similar to the barrels of Carnival Night Zone. Press down, you get more lift. For the most part, this act, you just make your way through it. Just avoiding the enemies and the traps. There isn't really too much that's threatening in this level. Except for the water. Pinball Land! Bad bumper. Actually, that was more of a bad jump on my part. But I can blame the bumpers too. One-ups are always nice. Rings? Actually, I'll see if I can get a ring bubble. That's better. I prefer rings. I did not mean to do that, but it works. Yeah, avoid those Eggman boxes. They're basically a really nasty trap. If you hit one and you have a shield, you'll lose your shield. If you don't have a shield, you'll lose your rings, and if you have no rings, well, there goes your life. Anyway, we're pretty much back on Sonic's path here. Make sure you have a lot of speed here, because there's a hidden alcove of rings. That's why I highly recommend picking up the Lightning Shield. Unfortunately, I lost my Lightning Shield, so yeah. See if I can get most of these rings. Good enough. And to your right, there's a giant ring here. Anyway, make your way down, and we'll be at the Act 2 boss. Now, be warned, the Act 2 boss for Knuckles has, how I want to put it, a more threatening mechanic. See, he brings in the platform. So timing is everything in this fight, because you don't want to find yourself being crushed and losing your rings or your shield. Fortunately for me, I have my super form, but if you don't have your super form, yeah, this boss is much more threatening than the one you see for Sonic and Tails. However, after 6 hits, he loses the platform, and 2 more hits later, the boss is destroyed. Anyway, we're at the animal prison, so I'm going to call it here. In the next part, we shall make our way through Launch Bay Zone. I hope everybody enjoys this, and I shall see you in the next episode.